Welcome to RCast, the official podcast to the RChain Cooperative. RChain is a complete, concurrent blockchain platform designed for maximum efficiency at minimal computational and environmental costs by utilizing proof of stake. Beyond our platform, our investment partner, Reflective Ventures, funds organizations that are working within our core mission statement to create a better world by enabling social coordination in robust, secure, and scalable ways. I'm Derek Barris, the Director of Content for RChain. Each week on RCast, I'll be talking with the founders of our portfolio companies, as well as co-op members, staff, and other figures in the RChain ecosystem about the most pressing issues in blockchain today. Please check out rchain.coop to learn more about the platform, our community, validator sale, and information on becoming a member. Witnet is an open source project created by the founders of Stampery, a blockchain data certification service. Adán Sanchez de Pedro is the CTO of Stampery and self-described skepticism maximalist. The Madrid-based entrepreneur and programmer developed his first company at 16 and has been creating projects ever since. He is the tech lead at the Witnet Foundation, whose goal is to create a decentralized protocol connecting smart contracts to any data source available online. Overall, they are aiming to become invisible in the process, launching a truly self-sustaining decentralized smart contract system. This interview was recorded last June by Blind Acre, who was working with Reflective Venture portfolio companies before I came on board at RChain. I've been recording the RCast thus far as interviews, but since I have a folder of previously recorded talks with company leaders, I want to make sure they see the light of day. I'm personally fascinated by a project that is launched and maintained until it can self-subsist. To explain this a little better, let's look at the history of our religious literature, for there's a story there that's important to understand. While working on an article the other day, I was reminded that the reason there are no authors of biblical and Hindu mythologies, for example, was because at the time it would have been too egotistical to claim credit for the story being told. Stories are shared experiences meant to drive right to the heart of the human condition, so the individual is truly unnecessary. Knowing who wrote something is not nearly as important as the story being told. Of course, we live in a much different time. One reason I love the possibilities of decentralization is the emphasis on shared experiences. Just this morning, I saw on LinkedIn that the combined wealth of the 26 richest people on the planet is now $1.4 trillion, equivalent to the wealth of the world's bottom 3.8 billion people. This is not only unsustainable, but ludicrous. No one needs that much money, and any system that allows for such centralization of power is doomed to fail. The problem is what will suffer as these systems start to collapse. We're seeing it across the planet right now. We can sit back and watch it collapse while feeling victimized, or we can take power back into our own hands. It's going to happen piece by piece. But this conversation with Adán is one example of a collective trying to do just that. Of course, it's a dream, but it's one worth living. Otherwise, the alternatives right now just are not worth it. The interview opens with what year Witnet was founded. And as you'll hear, Adán goes much more in depth about the history of the foundation, what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish, and why that matters.
Okay, we started thinking about Witnet some years ago, a couple of years ago or so, because we were building a different product, which is called Stampery, which is an engine for creating proofs of existence and integrity of any kind of data set. And at some point, we realized that the technology that we had was awesome for that, but some of our customers were in need not only of some way to prove the existence and integrity of their files, but also to prove that some data was available online somewhere. We have been dealing with this problem for a couple of years, and last summer felt that it was about time to start finding a solution to this problem, because in the blockchain space, more specifically in the smart contract space, it's a big problem. It's what is called the Oracle problem. How do you get information from outside the blockchain? How do you get information from something so very little deterministic as the web, the internet, without having to trust any single authority or entity that provides that information to you and that can tamper with that information? So we started working on that concept in June last year, and we came with this proposal that we put into our white paper last November, and as a kind of request for comments from fellow developers and researchers in this space. And we spent a couple of months receiving feedback from different people in the space, and we felt that it made a lot of sense and that we had to focus on this. So last January, we decided to go and see how we could secure the development of this platform and to see what kind of structure and project we had to create to make sure that in a year or two we have what is Witnet, which is a decentralized Oracle network that can provide data to smart contracts without relying on trust or on any kind of centralized single point of failure. We've been working since then. We created the Witnet Foundation, which is the American C Corp that we have this name only for practical purposes, because to actually create a foundation, a non-profit foundation, it has a much bigger burden in terms of bureaucracy. So a company that in fact has no business model, our purpose is only to secure investment to create this technology and to actually develop it. That's our goal. And we decided to run first regulation crowdfunding campaign on Republic.co, which sold out very, very quickly. So according to U.S. regulation crowdfunding, you can raise to a little over $1 million from non-accredited investors, which is a very, very nice experience, because we had very direct contact with the people that invested in Witnet Foundation, and we achieved a degree of inclusivity that shouldn't be achieved in any other way, because if you run the typical ICO in which you publish an Ethereum contract and people send Ether to this address, you don't get to know your investors, and you don't get feedback from them. It's a very different kind of relationship. After this campaign, we have been running private sale, which is called SAFT, Simple Agreement for Future Tokens, which is a very straightforward vehicle for investment, very, very similar to the SAFE, Simple Agreement for Future Equity. And in this case, the investor gives you an amount of money to develop a network that once created and deployed has a native token that you deliver to the investors proportionally to their investment. And this is rather conservative approach to running an initial coin offering, let's say, in the sense that you are recognizing that you're selling security, and that your expectation is that by the time the network is deployed in production, it's completely functional, and us as promoters can start to relinquish our power as creators of this platform and open the environment and open the platform to other developers. so that we are no longer their administrators, let's say. So then the actual tokens are not securities by themselves, because we will have no power to manipulate the network or to do something that can make the system more valuable or less valuable, because it will be independent from us. So in our roadmap to that, it's very important for us also to allow other developers to take ownership of this project, and to the extent possible to fund independently created implementations of the protocol and applications that work with this environment, and also to open our platform to other ecosystems and to connect to other networks. And that's one of the reasons why we found so interesting to partner with the people from RCast and to partner with Reflective Ventures, not only because the platform we are creating can be a data provider for RCast smart contracts, but also because we see that we need to cooperate with other teams to create this kind of interconnected ecosystems that are completely open and that can thrive even if we disappear.
The next question is, what vision was the business founded with?
Well, ever since we started working together, the same team in other projects, this is our third or fourth venture, and together we have always had very clear mission, which is democratizing access to verifiable truth, because for us the only truth possible is the verifiable truth, the one that you can check by yourself. This is very important also for other projects. For example, for Wikipedia, there are criteria for considering that the information that is included in an article is reliable. It's not about the truth itself. It's not about whether you know that something is a fact or not. The thing is that you need to prove to others that's what happens. So what we realize is that verifiability is very fragile. Continue with the Wikipedia example. Some Wikipedia article can be perfectly valid today, but tomorrow, if the sources the article is pointing to disappear, the article would not be accessible anymore under their rules. And this happens all the time. And the more information and the more data that the humanity creates, the more probable it will be that we will not have the capability to preserve the verifiability of that data over time. So we need some kind of way to anchor that verifiability, to write that into stone and let the future act to verify the data of the past, or at least to check that information was verifiable when it was first created. So that's why we created the Stampary for making this kind of data anchoring into public blockchains, and it's also why we thought of Witnet, because they are tools for people to guarantee that access to the truth and access to data remains democratic forever.
Here, Adan goes on to talk about the biggest challenges that Witnet has faced thus far.
We have taken different approach to other projects that are trying to do similar things, and in the sense that, for example, our main competitors, they base their security paradigm on using enclaves, which are trusted execution environments, which are extensions to microprocessors that allow code to be run in a secure way. That this technology, in our opinion, very unsuitable for this kind of projects, because if you're trying to deploy some kind of decentralized network, it's obvious that you cannot force all the nodes to be run on the same architecture. In this case, what we're seeing is that it's using Intel SGX, which is a proprietary technology which you have to pay a license to use. They can revoke your license at any time if they don't like what you're doing with it. It has a very high entry barrier. And we think that for decentralized networks, it's very important to be very inclusive, to allow all kind of entities with different interests to participate in order to enrich the ecosystem. It's very obvious that if all your nodes are using the same architecture and then it's discovered that there was a flaw in that architecture, there was a zero-day attack or something, everything will fall off and all your network will be broken, and that's unacceptable, of course. And that's not only a theory. In fact, there have been at least 3 publications proving that this kind of trusted execution environments like the Intel SGX are vulnerable to attacks like the Spectre vulnerability that was published earlier this year. So they're completely doomed. The challenge that we had to overcome was to make our network more secure than using that kind of technology, even if we don't use that kind of specialized hardware or anything. And we did that by designing very, very solid and robust mechanisms, incentives, and game theoretic incentives to make sure that every node in the network is always incentive to abide by the protocol, to follow the rules, not try to deceive the system, simply because that's the most profitable thing that they can do, which is completely how a blockchain project should try to face this kind of problems. And that's what we have seen with Bitcoin or Ethereum. Their solutions are not revolutionary because of the technology itself, but because they are implementing very well-designed game theoretic incentives that ensure that everyone is working for the good of the platform and for the good of the ecosystem, because that's the most profitable thing they can do.
Next, Adnan spends some time talking about the immediate and long-term effects of the investments that were made by Reflective Ventures into the company.
Our private and our private and the public and the small public scale, we have raised around $7 point something million, and the Reflective investments have been $3 million, half in dollars and half in the RChain token, the RHOC. And we found that they have been very supportive. They completely understand what we are doing. They understand how important it will be, not only to RChain, but also to other blockchain projects. And we're actually very, very, very happy with that relationship, because we're also fans of the RChain ecosystem and the RChain smart contract platform, because it has the same kind of values as we have, being that we come from a background of functional programming, and we are very, very fans of concurrency and all the concepts that you can find in platforms like Erlang or Elixir or Scala, and finding that in a smart contract platform is very, very refreshing, and we think that it's very, very applicable. All those kind of programming paradigms have very, very good chance to make smart contracts more secure and more efficient when compared to other programming paradigms like the ones that we have seen up until now.
Here, the discussion moves into how RChain compares to other blockchain platforms.
RChain stands out because their approach is very academic, very scientific, in the sense that it's very important for them to, for example, to make verifiable smart contracts that you can prove that they are valid and they will not misbehave, because it's very painful in other platforms not to be able to prove that the code that you're writing is valid and will not entry into any kind of unexpected state that could jeopardize your money or others' money. And having this platform in which you can create formally verifiable smart contracts, I think that's very valuable. Even if those contracts weren't as expressive or flexible, it doesn't really matter, because most use cases can be reduced to very simple contracts that are much easier to verify and to audit. And if the RChain ecosystem is capable of giving developers those tools to create that kind of contract, it will be very, very, very important for the smart contract scene, for the blockchain space, and for many use cases and businesses that will be allowed by the existence of that kind of platform.
And finally, Adnan talks about how smart contracts will influence the future of human transactions.
Smart contracts, at the end of the day, are programs that can handle value and that can be run without anyone tampering with them, without anyone having the ability to block them or manipulate their output in any way. So it's very important nowadays, and it will be more important day by day, because we need to accept that we as human beings will not be any longer the only ones working with money, because there are a lot of devices, a lot of machines that will little by little gain the capability to work with value, work with money, work with tokens representing things and representing ownership and representing all kind of reality. And they will be able to exchange and to trade and to exchange value and interact with each other without us in between. And this is unstoppable. This is going to happen. The smart contract platform that will be capable for the first time to give solid enough solution to these will see an explosion of usage over the next years, because the opportunity for that is there, and I have no doubt that it will happen.